Hey guys, welcome to Just Draw, Just Paint Part 10. I can't believe we've made it to the 10 mark, which is super awesome. I feel like I've really learned a lot from this series and just had a lot of fun making it with you guys. I do apologize for being away for so long. Unfortunately, I've just been super sucked into the school and helping people and getting things out there. And it's just been a ton of admin over the last, 6 months, I believe. It feels like forever. But I decided to do another character today, just because I felt like drawing something a little bit different that I'm used to. This was intended to be some kind of female warrior, some kind of fantasy character. And so here I'm just playing around with basic composition and character concept. This is the earliest stage. I think last time we did a video, I jumped straight into silhouette, whereas this time I like to start a little bit differently, start with a sketch. And for me, sometimes changing up the workflow is quite refreshing. I don't really have any one specific workflow that I always lean into. Some artists are quite particular with that. Perhaps it's because I haven't drawn enough characters in my career to really have a strong workflow. I'm not specifically a character artist, so that's not something I would overly concern myself with. But certainly, if this was something you wanted to do professionally, over time, the more you do this kind of stuff, you just start to build those calluses, right? Those things that you're just very, very comfortable with. So yep, today I could definitely talk a lot about the process here, but it's really nothing we haven't talked about before. And of course, this is just a drawing series, so it's nothing too technical, right? There's nothing magical that I'm mentioning here that I haven't mentioned in previous videos. I will, of course, jump in and out of mentioning a few things here, but at the moment, I'm just looking for basic composition, right? I'm playing around with the shield, and right after this, I'll play around with moving the pose around until I find something I like. And then I'll move into fixing up the silhouette and the appeal of the anatomy. And then I'll jump straight into working out the final line art. So this week, I kind of want to talk a little bit about something different. I've been getting a lot of, let's call it, really poor communication from a lot of people out there, a lot of aspiring artists. And the poor communication is something that I guess has always been there. You know, you can always say that people have not been great at communication for a long time. I mean, it's the reason we have wars and bad relationships and all that kind of stuff. But I think if this is the kind of business you want to get into professionally, and you want to reach out to someone who is a professional and you want to talk to them and you want to have a conversation or ask them about something or ask them for something, you know, even could come up once or twice in your time as an artist, I think we underestimate how important communication is. And I felt like I really needed to bring it up this week because I saw so much bad communication between myself and a few others that I was just shocked, quite honestly. And I've prided myself on spending quite a lot of time with this idea of improving my own communication. So when I see poor communication from aspiring artists out there, I get a little worried, to be honest, because I really think you guys underestimate how powerful good communication can be for you. So when you're crafting an email, when you're sending someone a message, when you're asking for something, take your time. Just really, really take your time with it. Like, write it out, get some second opinions. Like, if it's really important, try not to just hit that send button out of nowhere. And I would say the most important thing is that if you're communicating to someone and you're having a back and forth conversation about something, do your best to continuously show up for that conversation until it's complete. I've had, over the years, a number of people who I've been chatting to about something, and then out of nowhere, they just stop communication. And I'm not saying I said something to piss them off, right? I'm just saying, like, there's a culture right now, whether you want to call it, lack of responsibility or fear or, trauma from the dating world. I don't know what it could be, but there's a lot of people out there who are ghosting one another. And it's kind of strange. I'm a millennial, right? I'm on the cusp of being not a millennial, but I'm on the edge, right? So for me to see and hear and experience these things is actually quite unusual. We didn't do this kind of stuff before my time and during my time. It's really just happened after. And I've noticed a difference over the years in communication actually getting worse, not better. And since it's my job to bring this stuff up and help you guys kind of see the world through the lens of what it takes to become professional and to navigate the art world, I feel like it's really important I bring this up. And I think we all think that it's not as bad as it is. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been quite shocked, to be honest. It's been a roller coaster of just multiple people just being really, really poor at communication. And there's another reason why you want to spend your time communicating effectively. And that's because if you're working in a professional environment and someone asks something of you or to you or from you, there's going to be a lot of weight to the way you deal with that request or that conversation. Because say, for example, you're working on an animated movie, right? And someone in the team asks you, hey, what's your plan for this, right? What are you going to do with that? You need to be able to communicate relatively effectively, like how you're going to deal with any issues that pertain to the thing that they brought up, right? And by the way, it's perfectly fine if you don't have an answer for someone right away. Just take your time with the answer and then get back to them. But certainly get back to them, right? Make sure that you have something for them that they can use, right? Because they're asking you for a reason, right? There's always a practical reason you have a communication with someone. Is like there needs to be an exchange of information. So when there's a breakdown in communication, whether it's especially I should say when it's in a professional setting, it's going to affect everything about your art, right? I know it sounds crazy. It's like, how is my art going to be affected by communication? Well, it's going to be affected in the meta, right? The stuff that happens outside of art that allows you to art better. Let's call it like that. So when you're dealing with clients, when you're applying to jobs, when you're writing a letter, whenever you do it absolutely to the best of your ability. And if you're really not talented with communication, have other people help you with that. There is no shame in asking someone to help you communicate better. We don't all have the gift of communication. I certainly follow a number of other artistic YouTubers who have such an incredible ability to communicate so effectively in their videos that I'm partly jealous. I watch these people, I'm like, that's amazing. Like, they're so astute. They'll do like a long form video and start the record button and do no edits, right? They'll just communicate right off the bat, and their communication will be so clear that by the end of the video, I just feel like, wow, this person has some kind of superpower, right? And then you realize, actually, they've been doing this for a long time. And so their communication is good, right? They've been practicing their communication. So sure, perhaps this week, you might be thinking to yourself like, Gabe, come on, man. Like, is it really that important? Yeah, it really is. It really is important because if, say, for example, you have incredible artwork, like incredible, then you're still on the chopping block of being decided for a job between you and someone else who's got equal skill. And if you communicate worse than that person, guess what's going to happen, right? They're going to choose the person with better communication because they're more forward, right? It's easier to work with them. And that's really what it comes down to, is like, how easy are you to work with? Are you reliable, right? And communication is a part of that reliability. And it's a funny thing, but until you run into bad communication, you won't realize how important what I'm saying is, right? Even in a studio setting, if you're working as a professional artist and you just think, I come into work every day and I just work and I do my job, yes, that's true. That is important. And without that, of course, you wouldn't be there. But if you're communicating really poorly with anyone, your superiors, people who request things from you, it's going to get to a point where they're going to start questioning whether they can rely on you. And that puts your work and your livelihood at risk. And unfortunately, I've seen this happen inside studios where people are just not only poor communicators, but they don't listen, right? And they don't get the message that is being delivered to them, right? And it has a tremendous effect on their ability to operate within that studio because, of course, it jeopardizes their trust factor, right? So people, believe it or not, when you're hired into a studio or given a job or you're working for someone over the internet, it doesn't really matter, right? If you're communicating effectively with that person, it is so huge. If I hire you to work on a comic book, or if I hire you to work on an animated short, and your communication is absolutely on point, and you're sending me updates all the time, and you're just keeping me abreast of what's happening, you're making my world so much easier. And unfortunately, the opposite is also true. If you're poor at communication and you're not telling me what's going on and you're missing for days and nothing seems to come out of you until it absolutely does, that makes everybody uncertain. That makes everybody a little bit scared because we're all working to time and to effort on a project. And we need that reliability of just like, tell me what's going on and I can work with you, right? Because if you don't, I can't work with you. And there have been times where I've been working, for example, with my mentees, and they will communicate really, really well. And I've just, out of nowhere, I'm just like, thank you. Thank you so much for communicating that issue you're having, because without you mentioning it, it doesn't help me help you, right? And so the opposite, unfortunately, is also true. If someone isn't saying that they're having a hard time with a personal relationship or a personal vendetta, whatever it might be that's going on in their life, like they fell, broke their leg, they're not saying anything, and they disappear for days at a time, and you're just left there wondering, like, hey, should I call the cops? Like, is everything okay, you know? And so it's super important. It's very, very important, because it allows you, the person who is trying to benefit from putting your art out there, working with others, it allows you to step up each one of those stairs to the top, right? And that's ultimately, I think, what everybody's goal should be, right? It's like, how do I climb the ladder of life so that I can have better opportunities and better outcomes? And communication is deeply, deeply, deeply undervalued in our society, but especially in our business. Because we are visual creatures, we often think that our art is the only thing that matters. And yes, it does matter. And I've seen and I've been a part of hiring other artists inside studios that had absolutely incredible work, but their communication and their personalities became so toxic that we had to say goodbye. And it was very troubling, right? It's troubling for a production because you have to replace that person. It's troubling for the person because they didn't see it coming, because they never knew that their communication was poor. So when in doubt, just check in with people. I'm not saying be paranoid about how you're communicating, but just check in and be like, hey, is everything clear? Are we on the same page? Is it all good to go? Do I need to do anything else? Like, just double check, right? Double check with people, check in frequently, offer up your ability and your availability to communicate with others. Now, I'm just going to leave that there, because now we can just jump back into the art and take a look. So I've been drawing up this character here. As you can see, I've kind of nailed out a pose I really like. I kind of like this subtle foreshortening. I like the display of the weapon, the shield, the items. I love the design of this jacket. I'm going for like a medieval fantasy type character where I'm leaning a little bit more into the realism. So we've got, you know, a number of interesting things here. We have like a half tunic on her body that acts as like a wraparound of her torso, almost like a winter jacket, you know, something like that, that's sleeveless. And then we have a shirt underneath and these really wild gloves that are being held together by leather and the greaves. Sorry, not the greaves, the, what are they called? The things around your wrists. Bracers, of course. And so we've got some loose cloth in there. There's a lot of dynamics in here that are kind of fun to illustrate and draw out. A drawing like this, of course, you know, takes way too long. This is not necessarily a workflow I would use to deliver, you know, a bunch of characters for a client or anything, because it's a bit laborious. Line art, by the way, is incredibly laborious. It just takes so long to get a very tight line art, which is why most people don't go very tight. If they know they're going to do a painting, they might keep it very, very loose and jump straight into blocking out their values and their shapes. By the way, I've given some thought as to where I want to take this series, and I think I just want to keep it pretty loose. Since it is a Just Draw, Just Paint series, I'm not going to do any heavy design work. In fact, I'm happy to announce that I will be starting a new series for design, and it's going to be a long-form series. So if you guys are super nerdy like me and you really like design and you like the deeper, more meaningful, more integrated concept art type stuff, think that series is going to be really nice for you. So I'll be developing into a personal IP on that project, and I'll be taking you guys along for the ride. Bear with me because it's so involved and so complex. It's going to take time for me to get enough footage together to make it make sense. By the way, at the moment I'm drawing here, I'm kind of going over the sword here, and there's no defined design sense to this character. I didn't plot out what this character is supposed to look like, what kind of world they're supposed to fit into. So when I'm drawing out the sword, right, which is one of the key features here, there's a sense of like, I need to tie it to the character in some way, but I'm not sure what the design language should be for that item, right? So I'll try a couple things here. I kind of make it quite spiky at the beginning, and then later on, right at the end, I actually taper it back and I turn it much more into sort of good looking, or I should say good guy type sword, you know, where it's a little bit more angelic, a little bit more Celtic, you know, and kind of keep it there. So yeah, this week I kind of thought a lot about the kind of videos I want to be putting out and that are going to be a little bit different. Of course, the Just Draw series is so cool for me. I really like producing these, and I think I'll keep doing them, and I'll keep trying to bring in some information for you guys, whether it's about the drawing techniques or ideas. or simply stuff about the industry. Like today, we're talking about communication and the importance of it. I think definitely I'll keep doing that kind of stuff because there's so much to talk about there. I literally have an entire blog dedicated to this, so I have infinite subject matter of the sort of theoretical stuff of the industry that people don't talk about too often. And then I think with the long form stuff, I'm going to go into much more detail about my design choices. I'm going to walk you through why I made the decisions I did, and then I'll also walk you through why I'm approaching it a certain way, right? Like, why did I choose this piece to detail out first instead of the other stuff, right? I'll also mention how I'm building something. So we'll be doing a little bit of world building in that series because it's something I've really wanted to dabble with, but I've just not found the time in my career to jump into such incredible detail like that. But fortunately, I should say, I have recently found the space to do it. So I'm very, very happy to jump in and start working on that. Plus, it gives me a really good excuse to brush up on some technology and things that I haven't been over the years and improve in those zones as well. So that's the beauty of a personal project. Sometimes it doesn't have to be complex. It can be something like, hey, I need to improve my anatomy, so I'll just work on that for a while, and I'll start learning leg anatomy for like 5 weeks. And that's the beauty of personal projects, is like you can use a personal project as an excuse to learn something at the same time. Like, for example, maybe you're producing characters and you want to focus in on cloth, right? So you're going to do a bunch of robed characters for a couple of weeks. That's a really cool way to spend time on something and also turn it into a little mini project for yourself. Now, the kind of project that I'll be busy with is actually much bigger than that. And the problem with really, really big personal projects, something that most people don't chat about, a lot of artists kind of say, like, oh, I want to make my own IP and I have this great idea. What a lot of artists don't actually say is once they get started and they start fleshing out their ideas, pretty soon, most of them will peace out entirely. And the reason that happens is because the vision for that project and the scope of it just becomes unbearably huge. So, in my opinion, I think it's wise to, if you have a grand idea, just scale it down into something bite-sized and that you can actually produce, right? Say, for example, you want to build out like the next Avatar movie and you want to work on creature designs for the film, right? Well, perhaps there's going to be like 30 creatures, right? And that's a massive project. If someone came to you and said, we need you to design 30 creatures in a year and they have to be hyper detailed and functional and all that kind of stuff, you might be like, oh my goodness, like, am I going to get paid for this? Because if I am, I'll do it, right? But if someone's not paying you for the kind of personal work that you're doing, it's very hard to stay motivated, right? You're not under the gun as you would be inside a studio, for example. So having the discipline to really work on a personal project, I think one of the key secrets is to chunk it right down to like the smallest elements and then deliver on those elements until you've accrued enough of them that it starts getting a vision of the project. So when that happens, you can always pitch it to someone. Like perhaps you have that dream that someone will pick up your project. And if someone does pick up your project, they'll help you flesh it out, right? They'll get other artists on board. They'll help you produce it, all that kind of stuff, right? It might even be like, say, for example, a comic book project that you're really passionate about. And you create like the first, 6 pages, 9 pages. And then they look amazing, but you're like, oh my God, I burnt myself out entirely. What do I do now? Well, now is the time where you go, I need to show this to enough people to get them interested so that they can help me finish this. Because if I had to do it on my own, either I burn out and go crazy or it never gets done. And you run the risk of like, you made something amazing and you want to put it out into the world, but you need help to deliver on that idea. And that's totally fine, right? If you get to that point where you need the help, like it's not a shameful thing. You might have like complete creative control meltdown because you're like, what if I relinquish my control and nobody knows what I want and all these things? Like, yeah, sure. But you've already been the master of this project for so long that you know what it's about. You know what it looks like. You can help others meet that vision. And for a lot of us, myself included, it's so hard to let go of creative control. And it's so hard to let other people in to help you. And that's one of the weird things is that as artists, this journey oftentimes when we're trying to get good is so lonely because we're just doing it on our own, that we forget that other people can contribute to even anything we do, right? We can do collaborative drawings. We can do collaborative paintings. We can work on a series together. We can high five in the back alley and make a show out of it. You know, there's so much opportunity and potential for collaboration in this industry. And sure, I know I'm going on a lot of tangents here today talking about stuff, but I think when it comes to long form content that I really want to produce, it really is for you guys out there who are just super nerdy, that really want to get into the nitty gritty and really love this design industry, and you want to see what it's like to make something. Well, I want to take you on that journey with me. So that's about it for me today. I'm just cleaning up this drawing here. I'm trying to make it congruent. So I'll flip to a quick draw over. All right, I took some of these details. This is where I'm going to stop it. And then I spend like an extra hour just detailing out the sword and some of the face features and things like that. And then I call it a day. So thank you so much, guys, for sticking with me this week. I hope it's been entertaining. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.